Call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Copeland,
Here.
McCain,
Here.
Wertz,
Here.
Hyen,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Rust,
Here.
Hanfelder,
Here.
Trent.
Here. We will have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Very good. Okay. Public comment.
I've had a couple of people tell me that they want to speak publicly tonight, and I did also receive one email. Do you want me to read the email first?
That'd be fine.
Okay, this is from John McDole, and he says, my name is John McDole, and I am the president of the Edwardsville School District Board of Education. But I'm also born and raised in Edwardsville and have worked in the community for over the last 15 years. My ties to the school district aside, I am an advocate for the Edwardsville community, and I wanted to reach out to you to ask that you vote to support the proposed MOA with the Edwardsville School District. The Edwardsville community values education perhaps more than anything else. With Edwardsville District 7, SIUE, Lewis and Clark education is Edwardsville's most vital industry. The success that Edwardsville and its surrounding communities has seen over the past decades has been a result of strong community partnerships. The visionaries in place over time knew that by working together, great progress could be made that would in turn create and sustain a great quality of life for the residents of our community. It is by no accident that the school district and the community college has seen similar growth and success over that same period of time. I see this as another opportunity to strengthen a community partnership to help build a better quality of life for our residents, which will then help both Edwardsville District 7 and Lewis and Clark prosper to heights not previously seen before. I see this as a potential linchpin in building a stronger relationship between Edwardsville and Lewis and Clark, and in turn add enrollment to your great organization. Thank you for your time and all that you do for our communities.
Okay, next.
Gerald Mosier, may I speak? Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you, Gerald.
Okay, all right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am Dr. Gerald Mosier, professor of philosophy at Lewis and Clark Community College for 20 plus years. I speak tonight as both a faculty member and a citizen of the district. I have spoken before in these meetings, but usually in a rather rapid fashion because I am mindful of the 3-minute limit that is imposed on public comment. I would observe that it is difficult to express oneself fully within this time frame. I feel my previous messages have gone for naught because of my trying to say so much in a small amount of time. So tonight, I wish to share my thoughts in a new format for the edification of both the board and the audience. I wish to present a series of haiku, a venerable Japanese poetry form. I will share them now. I will speak slowly. Please listen. Focus on money, costs at expense of people, squandering each one. Dim views see unclearly. Decisions blind. Humility brings you light. What grows lives and thrives. What shrinks dies eventually. Which is preferred? You are what you think. You act on what you think. Be sure you think rightly. Quality costs. Achievement required. Nothing great is cheap. your intent. The college deserves to grow, but you hack its roots.
Thank you.
Well, I have 40 seconds in my 3 minutes, so I thought I might use the balance of this for silent reflection. Sometimes silence speaks as well. Thank you.
Sue, we have another one, you say?
Yes, Rachel Harris contacted me and told me she would like to speak tonight.
Hi. I'll go ahead and get started. All right. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address the board. My name is Rachel Harris. I'm a graduate of Lewis and Clark. I'm the child of a retired faculty member, an 8th grade social studies teacher, a community member, and a constituent. I felt it was very important to come here tonight to talk about the importance of the historical preservation of the Manny Jackson Center for Humanities and the legacy that Lewis and Clark Community College has in preserving our community's historical buildings and their vision to repurpose them to provide space and premier educational opportunities for our community members. The Manny Jackson Center for Humanities Manny Jackson Center for Humanities building and its legacy as the former Lincoln School is an essential part of our community and nation's history and must be maintained. Many people think of the land of Lincoln as a free state, but in reality for many residents, it was not that. And Madison County was at the center of this debate when at the site of the Manny Jackson Center for Humanities, it was originally the Edwardsville's town square and the site of the old donation courthouse, where in 1824, Illinois Governor Edwards Coles was put on trial for manumitting those who he enslaved in Madison County versus Coles. The old donation courthouse then became the first public education building for our African-American community members in 1877. The current building that we have standing there was erected in 1911, and it served as a segregated school for our African-American community until its desegregation in 1950. After that, it became what I remember as a fraternity house, much like the Benjamin Stevenson House once was, until Manny Jackson purchased it and endowed it to the college. It wasn't a mistake to choose Lewis and Clark to be the steward of this historical building because it keeps with the tradition of Lewis and Clark's commitment to preserving the heritage of the community in which it serves. When you look at LCC's campus and programs, it's apparent from its very founding with the acquisition of Monticello College to the purchase of the Benjamin Godfrey properties, as well as the N.O. Nelson complex, that this is what Lewis and Clark is about. This is what we have as part of our legacy. The important role that Lewis and Clark plays in our community's historical preservation is shared with future enrollees who use the buildings for community gatherings, attend college-sponsored events, and thereby learn about the history of the buildings and the people who made important contributions to our communities. It teaches our younger generation that what you do is important, and even they can leave their legacy for future generation. Your constituents are sharing that they believe in your continued commitment to preserving the history of our community alongside the educational opportunities that this building has historically provided for our community members. We do believe in the continuation of Lewis and Clark's legacy as a premier educational institution dedicated to preserving the history of our community and nation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rachel.
Anyone else?
I see Deb Whitskin's hand is raised.
Yes, thank you. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So hello again, my name is Debbie Whitskin. Again, I am a taxpayer at Lewis and for the district. I'm a concerned citizen, a faculty member, and a financial supporter of Lewis and Clark through the College Foundation. Every discussion that happens should be based on the values and vision for the future of Lewis and Clark. Both Manny Jackson and the main complex renovation reflect what is most important, and these include a direct alignment with our strategic plan to maintain and broaden access, to build community partnerships with a refocused plan on programming to meet the needs of the generation and the generations to come of college students. And more specific, the Manny Jackson lease with Edwardsville School District creates a guaranteed revenue for the next 5 years to support moving that mission forward. The resolutions on the agenda tonight also provide the financial support to push Lewis and Clark forward with a focus on providing opportunities that will better support our local communities, making Lewis and Clark a focal point for the region and those we serve. But in all honesty, there is so much more going on at this meeting tonight. There is something much deeper, and I hope you all can recognize it. Tonight, there is more than a decision to save Manny Jackson Center or to secure financial support for our campus. It's a plea to change the mindset and beliefs of some of our board members. What we need is a collective mindset on how we together can propel Lewis and Clark forward with genuine care for the future. The attitude towards Manny Jackson and the financial outlook by some of our board members is representative of a mindset toward the entire college and how resources are valued and embraced. It is obvious that some of you do not value these. It is true, the college will make it with or without Manny Jackson Center or the financial support proposed tonight. But the heart of what Lewis and Clark stands for, our values, our vision for the future will forever be impacted by the decisions that are made here tonight. I will not let attempts to lead by fear, aggression, or hostility win. Lewis and Clark deserves better. The narrative that continues to be shared, especially by David Hyan and Kevin Rust, who more recently and more intensely with his public outbursts of anger and yelling, indicate that you two in particular are trying to push a personal agenda that is against college functioning and against promoting a collaborative and trusting culture. Did you all know that Kevin Rust serves on the foundation board at SIUE, where the goal is to build assets and funding to support SIUE, while at the same time he's demanding Lewis and Clark spend down all our reserves and cut at all costs? That seems like a conflict of interest to me. Kevin Rust has even recently alluded to shutting down the main complex for good. How can we move forward when those who should care the most about our future do not? At Lewis and Clark, we value differences. We respect one another and we work together to empower students, each other, and our communities to become something bigger, to do better. You both should be embarrassed by your words and actions. I will continue to speak out and to share and to educate anyone who will listen about the narrow-focused, cut at all costs, intimidating ways that have been displayed on more than one occasion. This is about paving the way of our future, recognizing Lewis and Clark as the investment in our community that it is, not the burden. Lewis and Clark's future is one of growth and intentional decision making. We can do great things, but it's incredibly difficult when Mr. Hyan and Mr. Rust are resistant in every corner. I challenge you to do better. Thank you.
Well said, Debbie.
Tim Bell has his hand raised.
Thank you. Thanks for the time. I was just gonna rehash my speech from November, but I decided to speak on something else. I will say first that I still believe this is a win-win-win proposal, a win as an investment in the college, in the community, and for the taxpayers. I do think we can all agree that the initial concept for Manny Jackson may have turned out to be a lemon, and we all know the old saying, okay? But I think this proposal allows us to make lemonade. Let's not throw away the lemons. Tonight, though, I actually want to talk about agendas. We all have them. Decisions you've made in the past definitely did not mesh with some agendas with folks here at the college. I would bet now that most would acknowledge that in order to move this institution forward, deep down, they feel that that was the right thing to do. Also, some of you probably voted on things that did not match your original agenda. But as you got the facts and deliberated, you voted perhaps differently than you thought you would, because deep down you felt it was the right thing to do. These actions should be applauded. Exchange of ideas, mutual respect, civil discourse. This is what we need more of here in board meetings, here in the region, hell, even here in the country. This is what we need. And this is what the Manny Jackson Center represents. This is what Herman Shaw meant in November when he said Lewis and Clark could save Southern Illinois. Mr. Russ, you mentioned in November that enrollment will still go down because this is a demographic issue and it can't be stopped. And you're right that it's no one's fault here, but we can help be the solution to turn those demographic issues around. We can help stop it and save this region and help make this a place people want to come to and live and raise their families. This is one of the ways we can help. So I hope you will decide to vote yes on this proposal to make lemonade, and because deep down, you know it's the right thing to do. Appreciate the time. Thanks.
Well said.
Any other? Sue?
Those are the only ones I was aware of.
Okay. All right, thank you. We move on to updates.
Yes, sir. So the enrollment, we'll start with enrollment. The budget health update won't happen this month again, as we've communicated to the board. The Synoptics software, as a result of our cyber incident, is still down. So we're unable to generate those reports. We also shared this information with the Finance Committee the other day. So we do apologize for that inconvenience. The one thing I can say is that we are trending in a good direction, and we're basing that on where we were last year. Obviously, we don't have accurate numbers at this point based on what's happened the last 60 days from the cyber event, but we hope by February to be able to provide the board with the comparison reports as well as a more sound budget health report. In terms of enrollment, I'm going to ask Dr. Adams, Katie Adams, our Vice President for Student Affairs, to provide an update on our enrollment at this point in time and provide you some insights into what is happening in her area. Thank you, Katie.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Traska. Good evening to our board members. I appreciate the opportunity to address you this evening. So we have a great story to tell you, and we are super busy in the Enrollment Center, which is exciting. We are down year over year, currently just 4.7% in headcount, 13% in credit hours. That's compared with 18.6% last week and 19.1% respectively. So in reviewing the data, I've been here since November 16th, and what you find is that we are a late registration school. Many schools I've worked at have that tendency, and so we are seeing that play out. We expect to see a lot of enrollment over the next week. And so looking at the numbers and moving forward, we've gone through deregistration for non-payment already. About 132 students were impacted there. We had course cancellations yesterday. 85 students were impacted there. So what are we doing to address this and to boost enrollment? Historically, students have been able to drop courses after the start of the term very easily here, but the addition of a course has not been as easy once the term has started. And so I'm happy to say that in partnership with Dr. Lane and Mary Schulte from Finance, we have been able to work cross-divisionally to provide an opportunity for students to be able to not only drop courses, but add courses through the first week of the term pretty effortlessly. This is a beta test, really. We're going to try it out. We're going to assess it after the term and see how it worked and see what we can do to tweak it. But we believe that this will give students an opportunity for increased access and for movement in their schedules beyond the first day of the term. Our academic advisors are reaching out to the 85 students who were impacted by course cancellations and trying to get those courses put back in, get them in another course. We are outreaching to 88 students from fall term who had difficulty. They should have been near the end of their degree program, but they needed another course or two. So we're working with those students. We have extended evening hours both this week and next week so that we can help folks, perhaps they're working during the day, we can reach them, they can come in the evening. We also have scheduled what we're calling Super Saturday, and that is this Saturday, the 15th, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The campus will be open We'll have enrollment, advising, financial aid, bursar, access and accommodation, and the assessment center will be open. So basically, if a student has waited till the last minute, that's not a problem. They can still come in on Saturday. We can work them through the process and get them registered and get them through everything they need to do so that they can begin on Tuesday, the 18th. You know, in going through the data, there's just a ton of opportunity here, and I'm so excited about that. And it's definitely something that drew me to this position. And so, you know, one of the longer term pieces, but I think something we can dabble in sooner, is the expansion of our high school partnership liaisons. And so we're really looking at how we can expand those relationships with our high schools and maybe go a little more in depth and bring an added value to those high schools in the future. And so, you know, I look forward to bringing you a more in-depth enrollment management plan that addresses kind of longer term, 36 months out, that supports the goals of our strategic plan. And I look forward to doing that in the near future, but that's kind of where we're at for the moment. So I would welcome any questions from the board at this time.
I have a question.
Sure.
You talked about liaisons at the high schools. Are those our employees or are those high school employees?
Yes, so those would be employees of the college that are working with the high schools, dedicated high schools throughout our service district.
That's a play off of that original discussion, Julie, that we had, I think, late last year.
Also,
Yeah. So sorry about that. Go ahead. I don't know who was talking.
okay, that's okay. I just couldn't remember if,
Oh, sure.
you know, the actual liaison was a Lewis and Clark person. And then also you talked about we're doing this and we're doing that, we're contacting these students or whatever. And you may have said this, so sorry if I missed, faculty members or who's doing that?
The academic advisors are reaching out to the students so that we have their degree pathway pulled up. We know exactly what courses they've taken, what courses they still need. And so we're able to give the student a very focused approach to what courses are most meaningful for them to take at this time.
How many academic advisors do you have?
We have 5 here, and then we have them in the CECs as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julie.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Katie, I have a question. Actually, 2 questions. Number one, could you go over that again as far as how our enrollment now compares to what it was a year ago? And I
Certainly.
know it's a preliminary number, but
Certainly. So our student head count, we are down 4.7% year over year. And in credit hours, we are down 13.3% year over year. That's a direct correlation with, we've seen a little bit of a drop in our retention of students year to year. So that would be a direct correlation to that. Last week, those numbers, Mr. Rest, just to put it in perspective, we were down 18.6% in head count and 19.1% in credit hours. So again, that supports the concept that we are a late registration institution. Plus with the COVID surge, I think some students are really on the fence about, you know, is it safe to go to school? Is it not safe to go to school? And so we are answering questions and fielding calls from students on a regular basis about what we're doing to keep everybody safe and healthy on campus.
yeah, that's a very tricky issue, and I don't envy anyone that has to make decisions in this environment when it comes to COVID and the safety of our students. The second question I have is related to COVID. I've read a bit about the effect that this has had on the mental health of our students,
Yes.
and it sounds like it's really bad. Are Lewis and Clark, are we doing anything special about that? I mean, I know we have a mental health I don't, mental health coordinator or something like that. It was kind of a mandate that came down from the state, which was kind of well-timed, I guess you'd say. Could you comment on that a little bit?
Certainly, we do have a counseling office that meets with students, and we offer that to our students. We just sent a correspondence this week to our students, reminding them of the new, kind of coming back, how we were going to do that, and then making sure that they knew resources were available. If they're feeling isolated, if they're feeling anxious, if they're feeling lonely, that we have services available for them here on campus, and we provided the information for them so that they can reach out and use those services. Also, Dr. Lane today for in-service scheduled a mental health kind of workshop for us, and that was amazing. We're looking at kind of best practices across the country. There's some new concepts of kind of group activities you can do with students when they're on campus to kind of help them and give them a forum where they can kind of air out and talk about those things that they're feeling. And so we'll be looking at more programming that we can do throughout the semester, the spring semester, but we definitely do have services for students, and we are reminding them actively that those services are available.
Good. I'm glad you heard that. And I saw a couple of chats that really confirmed what your efforts are there. So that's good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
Certainly.
New team members?
No new team members. I believe Dr. Lane will introduce a faculty member in her update later. If that's okay.
Okay, omnibus agenda. We'll approve it with one motion, all in the agenda there under omnibus, unless any trustees would like to pull any item for discussion, separate vote. If no one wishes to pull any item, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes,
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
McCain.
Yes.
okay, approved. Move on to action items. Item A, approval of grant or sponsored contract opportunities. Need a motion to approve.
So move.
Second. Okay, been moved and second. Any discussion?
I really just have a question, I think would be for Val, maybe. When it comes to literacy, I've read, and I think it's pretty well established that those years from kindergarten through third grade are really crucial when it comes to acquiring reading skills. And I was just wondering if Lewis and Clark or any other community college, as far as that goes, do we have any grants that help us, that help that age group, or do we do anything with that age group? Seems like kind of a funny question for a community college, but.
I'm thinking we have a family literacy effort where we focus on our parents who are in our programs and their children. But other than that, we do, early childhood programming here, and that's what's coming to mind for me. That early childhood programming is probably the most important thing that we do to impact that age group.
Okay.
And education, we have some education training too. Dr. Lane probably can.
Is that early childhood? Is that in conjunction with Montessori school, or is that separate?
No, it's our own.
It's separate, okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes,
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
item B under action items, motion for organization restructure.
Motion.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second by Brenda. Any discussion or comments?
I have a question. How does this affect or does it not affect our overall head count? I guess that'd be a question for Dr. Traska or
Yeah.
Gabe Springer if he's here.
Gabe's not with us tonight. There are two items in that particular,
Yeah,
it's really not. I would say it's neutral in terms of head count because we did not replace the CIO position.
right.
Jeff Watson's position. We promoted Ron Wall into a Director of Information Technology position. And then we're just asking to replace Ron. And then in the finance area, I know that Mary has eliminated a management position and has proposed a newly restructured management position. So it would be a neutral head count.
Yeah, this is a neutral head count change. Yeah, thank you, Lori.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Item C, fiscal year 2022, 2023 tuition and fees. Need a motion to approve?
Motion.
Any second?
Second.
Okay, Brenda second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do have a question. How do these rates compare with our peers and not only our peers, but also with SWIC?
Say we're in line, we're competitive. I think Jill, do you have off the top of your head Mary, the credit hour, the in-district per credit hour? I want to say we're kind of right in the middle across the state, but I think regionally we're competitive.
And we've always been in the middle of the pack. I don't know that there's been any, we also haven't had any changes in the last few years, which has kind of moved us a little bit lower.
Right.
SWIC has a lower tuition,
At higher fees, right?
but a higher fee. And then it gets really complicated when you're trying to compare. Sometimes it becomes apples and oranges because particular programs have fees associated with or there's other hidden fees that, we talked a little bit about having a one fee, but kind of decided to continue down this route for transparency purposes. So students at least know where those dollars are being spent.
And those we actually lowered the fees in several cases. I think we've held the things stable for, it's been 2 years now, right?
Since 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
4 years.
So I think the answer to that, Kevin, we're competitive. We're trying to stay that way. And we're trying to simplify it too. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item D, proposal of Manny Jackson Center for the Humanities Facility. Need a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Dwight second. Brenda made the motion. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have I'd like to discuss or make some observations about this. And And this is, I think everybody, all the Board of Trustees members should have a copy of this I'm going to be talking about. The Board of Trustees, we always must make our decisions congruent with and guided by the mission, purpose, and vision of Lewis and Clark Community College. And that's stated in section 100 of the manual of policies of the Board of Trustees of Lewis and Clark on page 1. And that decision, that mission, purpose, and vision is overwhelmingly focused on students, the welfare of our students. Now, of course, there are some other stakeholders that are important, but the main focus is on the students. And I'd just like to make my observation. I'm going to make a few observations on the stakeholders. First of all, the students, by far the most important stakeholder. And this proposal contains no specifics and maybe a few generalities about that. And so basically, it doesn't benefit the students. It doesn't do anything for Lewis and Clark students. It may have the proposal may have some indirect benefit for District 7 because they're getting some needed office space, but it doesn't help the students, our students. The proposal does provide for a small amount of space in the Lincoln School for Lewis and Clark Community College, but that space, if we needed it, we could easily find space at the N.O. Nelson facility. Now, one of our other most important stakeholders, I would say probably second in importance to the students, are the parents and family members of the students. Now, it is doubtful. I mean, this is certainly my opinion. I haven't done any research on this, obviously, but I think it's pretty doubtful that very, very many parents or family members would see any benefit to the proposal. They would just kind of shrug their shoulders and say, well, okay, if you think that's a good idea, go ahead. But they don't perceive any, if they know anything about it, they certainly wouldn't perceive any, or actually they might perceive a detriment that scarce funds are being used and diverted away from benefiting the students. Faculty, a very important stakeholder too. And I think some of the faculty, and we've heard from some of them, and I certainly respect their opinions in that, and they're very well expressed, and I understand it, but that's not all of the faculty. And I think some would perceive that the proposal would enhance the image of Lewis and Clark, and I could see possibly some rationale for that, but no direct benefit or involvement by our faculty. There's no faculty involvement. Maybe some very minimal amount, but a little bit, but very little faculty involvement. From the administration staff standpoint, they certainly have no direct benefit of this proposal. Some of them might, of course, see the proposal enhancing the image of Lewis and Clark. Finally, like the community, this group of stakeholders, while experiencing little or no direct impact of the proposal, they would have mixed feelings. I mean, some people in the community, which I perceive them as being a vocal group, but relatively few in number, they would view the proposal favorably as it would preserve the Lincoln School as a symbol. Others, and I think it would be the majority of the district, actually, I'll take that back, probably relatively few in number, they would see adopting the proposal as another example of poor decision-making and poor use of tax dollars. Keep in mind that $4.5 million of tax dollars were used to remodel the Lincoln School. The majority of the residents of District 536 have very little or no knowledge of the Lincoln School / Manny Jackson Center for the Humanities, and they just rely on the Board of Trustees to make good decisions. There are some other stakeholders. I really don't have any opinion one way or the other on them. Our businesses, employers, vendors, government officials, and representatives. I mean, I'm not sure that are particularly relevant to to this decision. I do have a few other observations. If Lewis and Clark is to attract more students from District 7 to help reverse the 70% decline in our enrollment, we Lewis and Clark Community College has to prove its value to them and to the parents. We have to prove our value to the students and parents. If we don't prove our value to them, they're not going to come to Lewis and Clark no matter what. This proposal does little towards that, and Lewis and Clark Community College should leverage the excellent N.O. Nelson Center and other means to further the goal of increasing our enrollment. In addition, the sales proceeds, if I'm not promoting selling it, but if we would sell it, that 1.2 million or so, could be more, could be less. That chunk of money could be used to enhance the effort to regarding our enrollment. Another observation, Lewis and Clark has been involved with Lincoln School for about 7 years now, spending over $4 million to build a new facility within an old brick wall, just a shell. Very little of any significance has occurred at the facility, as kind of as Tim Bell alluded to. None that could not have occurred elsewhere. In fact, the three most significant events, which was Colin Powell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Fareed Zakaria, all of those events did occur elsewhere. They didn't occur at Manny Jackson. Any building, in this case, the Lincoln School, this is that third observation. Any building, if you have a building, it always creates more spending. This proposal claims that the financial arrangements more than cover Lewis and Clark's direct costs. And it looks like they do, except that I've heard that there may be as much as an additional $150,000 a year of Lewis and Clark costs not covered by the proposal. And one possible evidence for that is that Lewis and Clark has reserved the director's office and a receptionist's office for itself. Maybe does that, I don't know if that means that we're going to be hiring 2 people out there. I don't know, but why else would we have reserved that space for Lewis and Clark? It could have been turned over or rented to the District 7. Next observation, the proposal could be implemented at the same time that a sale is pursued. If that's allowed under Illinois rules, which I think it is, the property might be more attractive to buyers if there was an existing tenant. However, District 7 might not go for that. I kind of think they probably wouldn't. Even though in the original proposal, we only had a month-to-month commitment between Lewis and Clark and District 7, in the new revised proposal, there is a 5-year commitment, which was a bit of a surprise when first time I read that. Next observation, it's unfortunate that the Board of Trustees were never advised whether or not there were any other arrangements or any other arrangements pursued besides the District 7 proposal. Next observation, I'm getting towards the end. The proposal shows a net cash flow of about $40,000 a year. Now that's the $7,500 a month that we would receive from, the college would receive from District 7, minus about $50,000 a year of expenses paid by Lewis and Clark. So Lewis and Clark is only netting about $40,000 or so. It could be a little bit higher depending on the cost sharing arrangement regarding maintenance, telephone, and internet. Assuming the $40,000 a year though, it would take 30 years, just on not even a net present value basis, it would take 30 years to equal the 1.2 million of appraised value that we received or we saw in the appraisal. And that it just, financially, the proposal is just a poor arrangement for Lewis and Clark. Next, the proposal represents unfair competition with our local tax-paying businesses. There's people out there trying to make a living renting property. According to the Lincoln School appraisal recently done, the market triple net rental rate is about $130,000 a year. They figure about $10, triple net rate of $10 a foot. The proposal calls for only $40,000 to $50,000 net. And I could be wrong on this. I estimated 80 to 90% of the facility. They used a figure, I'm not sure they exactly used a figure of 7,136 square feet, which is about 56% of the facility. But on a triple net basis, at 40,000, a net of 40,000 for the facility, and dividing that by 7,136 square feet, we're only getting $5.60 rental. That is way below the $10 net rental rate that's shown in the appraisal that we got. So once again, it's showing that it's a very poor financial arrangement for Lewis and Clark. So my conclusions, I have two conclusions. Number one, although it's a bitter pill to swallow, especially after spending over $4 million of taxpayer money, the Lincoln School should be sold either outright or perhaps with some sort of a lease purchase arrangement. Now, second conclusion, perhaps with a proper, more market rate arrangement with District 7, the Board of Trustees could consider a revised trial basis proposal. Certainly not a 5-year commitment, I wouldn't think. Pursuant to such a revised proposal, the Board of Trustees must require goals which are well-defined and measurable, none of which were in any of the supporting documents in that. There were some good generalized goals, I guess you'd say, collaborating with the District 7, but nothing measurable in terms of, for example, more students in the high school partnership or more students coming to Lewis and Clark. So one more factor to this is that we now have a new proposal that just came in not too long ago. And we have not even considered that, had a chance to even consider that proposal yet. That's why from an individual. And so for all the things that I've just stated, I move that we table this motion.
I second that.
Motion been
I
made.
totally disagree. This is the mission of this institution and what that center stands for. And when I disagree with what you said, and that's your opinion, but I disagree with it. I believe that the students, the parents, the faculty, the administrative staff, the community is all involved in this. The forum was conducted. It was overwhelmingly in support of keeping this center. And I think I do not think we should table this. I think we should move ahead with our motion on it. And as far as the events, that center was not designed to hold events of that caliber. It was a fundraising event, and that's what those were done for. Most people have their events at centers like Lewis and Clark Community College or SIU or other venues. So to me, that does have no play in all of this or in the proposal, Kevin. But, I respect your opinion. I just disagree with you.
Brenda, I looked at all the whole 10 pages or so of activity at Lincoln School, and very few, if any, of those activities could not have occurred somewhere else. They could have occurred somewhere else, and many of them, the majority of them, by far, as far as I could see, had very little to do with the heritage of Lincoln School. And I will add, let me add, I don't want to talk too much about it, but my perception of the proposal that we have not reviewed yet is that it does respect the heritage of Lincoln School.
Mr. Chairman, we're discussing a motion that's on the table, right? So we can't make another motion to table while we're talking about this other motion. Can you inform me on that?
We can make the motion to table. It's been made and seconded, and we're discussing really the motion to table.
We've already made a motion to vote on this before the motion to table.
I know, but motion to table takes precedence. Dennis Weidman, would you advise?
Can't hear you, Dennis.
Okay, I'm trying to unmute here. Under Robert's rules, I guess, if you've adopted that as your parliamentary procedure rules, that there are certain motions that take precedent over motions that are on the table. And a motion to table is one of those precedent motions. So I guess if there would be a second motion to table, you would have to vote on that first before you voted on the issue at question. Now, what we're talking about, though, is the motion that's on the table is whether or not to approve the lease arrangement with Edwardsville Community Unit District 7. There's no motion or no action item to even sell the property tonight. The only action item is whether or not to enter into the lease arrangement. That's the only action before the board. So that either needs to be acted on or tabled until a future meeting.
A motion has been made and seconded to table the proposal for Manny Jackson Center for the Humanities Facility.
Yes, David, I'd like to have a comment before we vote. I'd like
Sure.
to have one chance.
Sure.
We've kicked this thing down the road enough. We put it off 1 month. Now we're putting off another month. And I hate putting it off for a supposed phantom offer. We have no knowledge, don't even know if it's legitimate or not. We had overwhelming support from the community at all the listening sessions. We've had big support from the community for Edwardsville's city or Edwardsville school system. And this property is almost paid for, and I don't think we need to delay this anymore. And part of our name is community in the community college. And what we need to do this is the community's asking us, obviously, to do this. We've had overwhelming support tonight from faculty, staff, public speakers, and the listening sessions had overwhelming support. So I think we need to listen to the community and act in their favor.
May I make a few comments as well? I know, Kevin, I appreciate your comments. I saw those last week before our meeting on Friday with a trustee, with Julie. And I did share that there were other proposals entertained that did approach the college, but those were confidential. And I feel confident that those were shared with the board. That we were looking at other proposals, and the best, most feasible proposal was in fact District 7. It was generating revenue, it would enhance our partnership and allow us to move forward. In terms of the space, I did reply to you, and I felt confident in the reply in our discussion on Friday, and then the follow-up regarding how we came to the lease amount. And in fact, we're at a $16 per square foot. The 7,136 square feet is from the county. So it's not a frivolous number. That does not include the basement, which is unfinished. Therefore, the calculation is based on the usable space in the building. If we were to rent the entire building at $16 per square foot, which is, quite frankly, it is on the lower end of the $16 to $22 range, which is typical for our area for comparable properties, we'd be at about $114,000 in revenue that would be generated from renting the usable space in that building. We are generating, with the additional fees that we would work out with District 7 for telephone or network usage, we anticipate being actually at about $100,000 per year in revenue, and we would gross around 30 to 40%, of course, depending on costs and other things that come up. So I want to just reinforce that I think you're off a little bit in those calculations. And I know we spoke about this. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but you're off. You're off on your calculations.
Okay, well, I'm using the county calculations. I'm using the average.
The county doesn't make those kind of calculations. The county may be able to
With a
help. you
public
make-
document, there's 7,136 square feet. And we have another document that I shared that breaks down every square foot of every room in that building. There are seven rooms in that building that District 7 is using.
Well, I'm not disputing the 7,136 square feet.
Right. And they're renting just under 3,000 square feet. So they're renting about 40% of the building. And the college will have the opportunity to generate additional revenue because the large common space is still open. We have space, which I've articulated to the board, that we aren't adding additional team members. I don't know where that came from. We're actually going to have our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and perhaps Tim Bell being there on occasion, to have a presence there to be able to create those connections and collaborations with District 7. But this proposal goes beyond District 7. It's actually about connecting all of our communities together, using the Manny Jackson Center as a conduit for that, as a platform for that. So, in my opinion, the proposal is worthy of a shot. And as I've talked to many board members one-on-one, I think we deserve an opportunity to try to do something that's never been done before. Yes, we've been engaged with the Manny Jackson Center for 7 years, but arguably 3 of those 7 years, there wasn't an opportunity to do anything. The college was in transition. We've had COVID, et cetera, et cetera. So we're now at a point where we have a renewed sense of connection to the community of Edwardsville, an opportunity to take this property that the college will own by the end of this year straight out and try to make something of it, which I think is a really noble thing that we should do. I mean, from a personal perspective, if we've invested $5 million of taxpayer dollars, and I've continued to pay taxes in the community while not living in the community, that's a bad investment. So let's get $800 or $1 million. So we're losing money. In this case, we're actually not going to be losing money anymore. We'll have the property paid. We'll have an opportunity to move forward. I've also built into the proposal an evaluation model. So we can look at this on a regular basis, provide the board with updates, provide the board, and we've talked through the measurable goals. I mean, that one measurable goal is we're generating revenue. The other part is we are going to be planning programs and events, and the benchmark is 0. We've never done anything. So we're going to say the first year, which I put in my response to the full board, is we can anticipate, 10 to 12 activities outside the scope of the rental in the first year. And those may or may not generate revenue for the college, but they're going to be activities that we're going to provide through the center. So that's my thought. I feel good with the numbers. We fleshed them out. I've worked with District 7 pretty closely in getting to this number. The other piece too is we're approaching this with a mindset, and I've said this to the board, of partnership. So, so we want to do this collaboratively. We feel that there's a true opportunity here to do some amazing things. So certainly appreciate the feedback and certainly appreciate the consideration, but I really believe wholeheartedly in this proposal. The leadership team has put a tremendous amount of effort into it. As you know, there is overwhelming support in the Edwardsville community from leadership and from community members. And I know many of you know those individuals. So there is authentic and genuine support for the presence of Lewis and Clark Community College in Edwardsville through Manny Jackson. I think this proposal deserves a shot. I think we have an opportunity to do some really amazing things. And I would really be appreciative of the opportunity to lead this proposal forward if approved this evening. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Dr. Traska, how long ago did we have the listening sessions over at Manny
Those
Jackson?
were in June.
June. Okay.
And there was one proposal that was brought to us really before the formal process began, considering to perhaps buy the property. And, we met that individual at the property. Dr. Artis was with me and a few other individuals. And then that individual withdrew that proposal. It was news to me yesterday that apparently there's a proposal, which is interesting that I wasn't aware of this proposal, that was brought to a board member and not shared. So I'm a little bit taken aback by that and feel that, I mean, is there validity to that proposal? What is the proposal? And when was that proposal first presented? Is it the same? I believe it's the same proposal that was presented in like April-ish or May of last year. And I haven't been contacted with a renewed proposal. So I think that's void. I think we move forward. And of course, if we're in this agreement and something comes up, I mean, you know, I think in partnership with the school district, I mean, naturally, if something happens and there's an opportunity or we want to change course because maybe this isn't working the way we wanted, which I don't think it's not going to work, you know, we step back and we can always reset. But it's sort of like, let's give this a shot before we just walk away from it and go down a road that I think will have worse consequences in terms of connection and collaboration and opportunities with our community. So,
well, we've had since from June to January that we've been taking listening sessions and taking proposals. And now we're here, we're in January, we put this thing off in December. I think we got a deal in our hand, and it's a good deal, and it's a solid deal, and it's not a pie in the sky deal. We should take this deal because this other deal that we supposedly have, I think it's just another delay tactic.
And the other thing is we can't accept a proposal to sell. We have to, being a public entity, we have to go to bid. So, you know, kind of entertaining and talking to folks behind the scenes kind of undermines the process.
There's been plenty of time for anybody to have a proposal to come forward.
This proposal is not a proposal to sell.
Well, they've had since June to come forward, and they haven't. So
I thought Dr. Traska just said they heard from there's a different proposal in April. I don't know.
No, I don't know. My understanding was that it was the same proposal, but again, I don't know. That's my point. I don't know. I heard that, but I don't know. And I heard it sort of secondhand. So
Dr. Traska, you said that there were no other proposals. That's what you told me. There were no other proposals other than Edwardsville School District. And through the grapevine, I found out that was not true. So, there is interest out there, and the interest, and I can guarantee you, Dwight Wirtz, that it is a legitimate offer to be interested in it. I checked the individual out and has the wherewithal to do whatever he wants to do. And it was bringing a museum to Lewis or to Edwardsville. I think it'd be great to have.
It's the same.
And I've talked to different people in Edwardsville, and they think, and I explained to them what might happen, and it has to go through a public auction. That would be if it were to be sold, and the people were interested. And now you say that there are a lot of people interested in Dr. Traska's proposal. Outside of Edwardsville, I haven't received one positive comment in leasing the building. It's always, when are you going to get rid of the Lincoln School?
Well, I think this is an opportunity for us, sir, to connect with those communities, and celebrate that message. And I think based on what you said, it is the same proposal, because the proposal that came to us in April was for a museum, and that person withdrew that. The other two proposals, and I've shared those with Julie and Kevin, were in confidence, and they know one of those individuals I know, and the other was a school that wanted to utilize space, but it wasn't conducive to their needs. It was a local school in Edwardsville. Those proposals did come through, but they were sort of at the end of the process. And, if somebody says, hey, can I look at the property and see if this is feasible for what we want to do? Of course, I mean, we're going to look at obviously what the best opportunity is. But I knew that, what we had already in place, or at least taking shape with District 7, was very formidable and made a lot of sense. So anyway, I think it's an opportunity to build bridges. I understand everyone's perspective.
I'm not
And I hope-
interested in building bridges. I'm interested in the welfare of our students.
And this is both direct and indirect correlation to our students. I mean, by hosting events and programs and building messages through the center, I mean, there are opportunities to build that image and build that brand and connect with our students. I mean, everything's going to connect with students and bring value to students in different ways. Plus, through students, through current students and through prospective students, especially through District 7, I mean, I just think there's a really neat opportunity for us to do some good things there. I mean, why not give it a shot? I mean, why not? I mean,
why was there I didn't see anything in the proposal or in your backup material that talked about any sort of direct benefit to the students. Maybe some indirect benefit by enhanced image and that. Maybe we might get a few more students from Edwardsville, but very vague.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak. I don't think we should table this tonight. I think we need to deal with it because it's just too difficult for everyone just to have this go on another 30, 60 days. I plan to vote in favor of the proposal. And I've thought about this long and hard. I've talked to a lot of people. I've talked to Edwardsville leaders. I've talked to non-Edwardsville people, and it's difficult. It's hard. It's a one way or the other. It seems like it's a one side or the other. There's no in between. But I feel like this proposal is kind of an in between. First, I want to say that we've come a long way from where we were a year ago when the building had been empty, hadn't been utilized, and we were pressing the college leadership to do something with the building. It was an unused asset, and we've come a long way to where we are today, and we have this proposal in front of us. And I know the leadership team worked hard on this. And I'm glad that it brings in revenue. I'm interested also in covering costs. I don't want we've paid for security and landscaping and so forth on this empty building for many years, and I don't want that to continue on. I want it to be utilized. I respect the opinions of the Edwardsville leaders in the community who I've talked to personally, and they think this is a good idea. That's important to me. I think it remains to be seen whether the possible benefits listed in the proposal, like with program development, collaboration with District 7, the community activities that happen here. Those all sound great, but it remains to be seen whether those happen. I honestly hope that they do. I hope this all works out. But Dr. Trask has assured me that we're going to review this at minimum annually to see if we're attaining the program development goals, if we're covering our costs. I'm also concerned that when we get the building full of people that our costs are going to go up, but hopefully, we can work on that with District 7 and they'll be reasonable. So I think we should also consider, maybe a rebranding of the building in that, it's a Lewis and Clark District 7 endeavor now, not so much Manny Jackson endeavor as it was. We want Edwardsville and northern communities to see that this is Lewis and Clark there, and this is District 7 there. So maybe we need to consider that. So I think it will benefit the reputation of the college and the Edwardsville community from what I've ascertained. And I know there are a lot of people who don't agree with this and who think we should sell it because it was a mistake in the first place. But I'm hoping to salvage this situation by trying this proposal. I also feel that if we delay this 30 days, I'm afraid it's going to mess up the proposal that's on the table, and then we'll have nothing unless this somewhat shaky offer comes through, which I'm very concerned that it will not happen. And it really, frankly, I feel is not a good offer. It's a starting point for negotiating, and we could continue to do that. So I don't want to lose what we have here in this proposal with District 7. I think it's worth a shot.
Well, I'm fearful this is going to cost us lots and lots of money. Like the, Jackson proposal started out with wonderful thoughts, and I'm fearful that this proposal is the same, but that's just my thought. Okay, any other comments?
So by order of precedence, we have, and I didn't catch who made it and who seconded it, but we have an order or we have a motion to postpone indefinitely, which does take precedent over the motion to approve the arrangement with Edwardsville Unit 7. We've had debate on the motion to postpone indefinitely. So that has to be voted on before the main motion can be voted.
Yes, I understand that. Any other comments? Okay, first we'll vote on the motion to postpone this until next month. So a yes vote would be to delay and postpone the original proposal presented. Everybody understand that? I think so. Call for the vote on the motion to table.
Okay, Copeland,
No.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent,
No.
McCain,
No.
Wertz,
No.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson.
No.
Okay.
And now
So-
we vote on the proposal for the Manny Jackson Center for the Humanities.
Yes. Okay, Copeland,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Hyen,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
No.
Hanfelder,
No.
Trent,
Yes.
Okay, motion carried. The next item is item E, President request to attend professional conference or event.
Perfect timing.
Need a motion
Motion.
So move. Second.
made in second. Any comments? Call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Motion carried. Item F, authorize president travel for legislative engagement. Need a motion in a second.
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
And Brenda second. Okay. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item G, faculty seniority list. Everyone got a printout of that, I assume. To approve it, need a motion.
Motion.
Okay, second.
Second.
Oh, thank you.
Motion been made and second. Any comment? Call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
Trent,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder.
Yes.
And pass. Item H, resolution 22-9, providing for the issue of not to exceed $8 million general obligation debt certificates, et cetera, et cetera. You've all read that. We need a motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Been made in a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I would like to table this motion because there are other resources and methods that should be pursued for this funding this trust fund.
Motion been made to table. Is there a second to table? Anybody want to table this? Guess not. Dies for lack of a second. Any comments on this issue? I have some. I would like for us to use the working cash. We have plenty, we have several $1,000,000 to do that. And Mary said that if we spent that, we'd have to go to the voters to activate that working cash fund again. I think that'd be kind of nice to let the voters vote on this because previously no bond issues have ever been voted publicly, or at least in the last probably 15, 20, 30 years. And I think that if we use the cash money rather than sell bonds, that would be, I think, good on our part. And then if we needed an emergency came up and we needed to reactivate the working cash, I believe the people would go along with us. And if we didn't want to use the working cash, I think there's another option. Why couldn't we go to the bank and borrow $8 million? That's my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
Good question.
We could, I suppose we could go to the bank and borrow the money. We don't have to issue bonds. That's true. But we have an awful lot of investments. We have 70 million investments, and which is up about $8 million from, $8 million from about 2 years ago, from December of 2019. I went back and looked. I think we can fund most, if not all of this, from our current investments. We're not getting any return on those investments anyway, a piddling 20 basis points or less in a lot of cases. So I think I don't think we're done pursuing our funding. And the problem I see with the bond, let's say we do end up having to issue bonds. If we issue the bonds now, we're locking ourselves into that issue more or less. Whereas if we fund the $8 million, even actually the 12.5 million temporarily, we have access to pulling that money out of there by issuing bonds later on if we have to. In other words, I'm just saying that the doing a bond issue now limits our flexibility.
I think cleaning out our checking and credit account and then we'll have to go to the public in case we need it is a terrible idea.
We're not going to clean out any accounts. We have 70 million in accounts.
We don't have.
Excuse me.
Mary, do you want to take this or do you want it?
I can start.
Okay.
I can start. And I'll start with Chairman Hyan's suggestion of abolishing the working cash fund. The mere thought of doing that for any business of any kind to me is just absolutely terrifying. I think that could be just destructive to the organization as a whole. This is our operating money. This is our cash flow money.
Yes.
The advantage in selling bonds for this purpose is we can sell these as tax exempt bonds as well because they're capital dollars. And we're not asking for a bond sale in the amount of what we need. We're asking for a bond sale in the portion of what we have identified as as the funds that we need and cannot be obtained through other funds we have for capital purposes. So, and as to flexibility, this bond issue gives us that flexibility because it preserves the unrestricted reserves that we have worked very hard to attain and hold on to. Those same reserves that could be used for an educational purpose of beyond a building. It could be used for technology investment. It can be used for that rainy day that we're always trying to plan for. What do these reserves mean to me and to the college? It means financial stability. Stability for us day to day, knowing that we aren't operating on last dimes. What does that mean to others outside of the organization? It means a lot to our accrediting agencies. Higher Learning Commission looks at our ability to support our operations and to have those reserves in place should they be needed. We have to report each year institutional update on various ratios, and they're looking at a composite score to see where we stand financially. It means significant dollars for when ICCB comes to look at our recognition. For recognition purposes, they look at our reserves. They look at our ability to continue and to weather the storms that come. And storms do come. They come in the form of the state. They come in the form of a pandemic. They come in the form of a cyber incident. And those are just the big ones we've experienced, in the last 5 to 6 years. It has a significant meaning to those that are looking at us for credit purposes. We went through a Standard & Poor's rating call. I've been parts of those calls when we didn't have this type of reserves. And I know what that means. If you participate in those calls, and it was probably a good hour, Dr. Traska and I sat with Standard & Poor's and Tom Crabtree from Stiefel and other interested parties. And those reserves and our commitment to those reserves and saving those reserves is what keeps our rating where it is. If we lose our reserves, that rating is going to go down. So if we have to borrow money, we have to borrow it at a higher rate. And that's just the simple things as to what this money means to me and to the institution in general.
So based on your line of reasoning there, Mary, then we should borrow the whole 12.5 million, or maybe even more. Let's build those reserves up even more.
I'm not trying to go for, sure, we could do that if you'd like to do that, but I'm trying to.
It sounds like you'd like to do that.
No, we want to find a balance.
That isn't what I'm asking at all. That is not what I asked at all.
And we're just trying to find that balance. So that 12.5 million, we're asking for 8 million of that. The other, which we outlined, I actually started outlining it at the special board meeting when we were seeking the approval of the match, of the different scenarios that we felt we should be exploring to be able to do this. Because we also respect the fact that, taking out or selling additional bonds, isn't always a great thing. So let's find a balance and let's sell bonds, knowing that the bond sale, the money that we get is going toward investing in the next generation of Lewis and Clark. So I think we have to look at the utility of those dollars, but still maintain stability, as Mary outlined, financially, which is a really good thing. And it should be a good thing that we've had some good years. Of course, we've had a little bit of help with operations on campus being at a much lower level because of COVID, but we've also been very mindful this last year and a half of looking at spending, how we're developing our budget, and how we're making sure this budget is associated very, very intentionally to our strategic directions, and that we're making decisions, and I think everybody on this call knows this, that do go back to impacting students and impacting the types of services and programs we need to serve our students. So we don't want to empty the bank account, so to speak. We want to find that balance, and we really do feel that this is kind of a meeting in the middle. We're asking to sell some bonds, but we're also redirecting some of the cash that we do have and some of the sources that we do have on campus to get to that 12.5 million. So, you know, and we've spent, I don't know, Mary, we can't count the hours, but we've spent a lot of time, you know, in discussing and looking at scenarios since we really knew this was going to potentially become a real thing with the main complex. So,
And we have an amazing opportunity here to receive 75% of this project from the state, and we need to come up with our 25%. And I'm asking that we borrow just a tad bit more, or maybe, you know, than half of that 25%, so that we could perhaps invest $8 million and walk away with a $50 million building.
Mary, I'd ask you about borrowing money from banks. Is that not a possibility? Rather than sell bonds? Because, you know, we could give them, it's just, you know, that was a question I had.
Well, you had asked about a line of credit, and we're not able to use lines of credit because I need to have the money to put into a bank account.
Well, I know, I'm saying borrow the money from a bank. Wouldn't it be cheaper to borrow money from a bank than sell bonds? Just a question.
Hi, David. This is Tom Crabtree at Stifel. How are you?
Fine.
So the state code outlines the opportunities for community colleges to borrow. This is the method that's identified for community colleges to borrow. And as a direct comparison, you know, obviously, first of all, as you know, bonds behave in the same fashion as a loan. So, you know, interest and principal payments, that all is the exact same thing. So there's no differential there. Ultimately, what it comes down to that Mary sort of referenced earlier is, of course, the interest rate and the fact that your bonds provide federal tax exemption. So you get a lower interest rate. Then it really comes down to the idea of how you achieve that interest rate. And if you'll remember, you know, last year, we did choose to go through a different method of sale, the private placement method, which is essentially the idea of going to interested parties, mainly banks, to look for the lowest possible rate. And we got some good interest. You know, I just pulled up last year's information and we got 7 different bids, but most notably, those bids were spread between the low bid of a 119 up to a 242. And that's not uncommon to see by any means, but that sort of illustrates the illiquidity of the market when you're dealing directly with a bank. And that was a reasonable, very reasonable method for sale last year because the amount of the sale was much smaller, it was only 2.8 million. And so the overhead costs of going to the public market are higher as a ratio of the overall borrowing amount. But once you exceed about that $3 million threshold, the overhead costs of accessing the public market go down precipitously. So, you know, now that we're up to a, you know, $8 million sort of range, we're well above any kind of threshold that would make the private market more attractive. The real benefit of going to the public market is now, rather than going to a list that we curate of 100+ entities that we by law have to whittle down to about 25 interested parties, we now can go out to thousands upon thousands of interested parties in the public market to sell these municipal bonds, accessing our sales network, the networks of our affiliates, and the opportunity then, of course, to still sell to local individuals and banks and those kind of entities that are interested in supporting the community. But really, all that means is we're able to significantly increase the demand in the supply and demand equation. So the supply is a limited amount of bonds. It's a set number of bonds. And we significantly increase that demand side of the equation. And that helps us drive down and truly find the lowest possible interest rate of any available security. So hopefully that gives you a little more comfort that this is in fact, sort of empirically the best way to find the lowest possible cost of borrowing.
I think we should listen to the people that do this for a living. And Mary's been around this for many, many years. And Tom Crabtree, thank you for your comments. But I think cleaning out or taking our cash flow is not financially prudent for us or any other business. For that rainy day, we just went through a rainy day with this ransomware. It could have been a lot worse, but there's all kinds of things out there that could happen that we would have no financial backup for. And there's no reason to drain those cash reserves when we don't have to. So I think we should go ahead and vote on this tonight and follow what the experts tell us.
Mary, will the tax levy rate go up because of this issuance?
No, our plans, Julie, are to fund this in the same way that we funded the 2014 bond issue. And that's to use the nickel that is already on the tax levy as our source of revenues to make these debt payments.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted you to say that out loud. So the tax rate for the taxpayer won't go up, the tax levy rate.
We will use the same existing nickel that we are assessing now.
Right. And our debt has continued to decrease over the last 3 years, right? We talked about that in the finance committee.
I believe the number was 27 million from 2017 to 2020. I think was the number. It's in this pile of stuff that it was more than what we're asking for.
That's through 2020. So
right.
It's gone down more.
And you're going to have some debt fall off here soon.
We are.
Like Manny Jackson would say, that's going to fall off. So eventually, Julie, thank you for asking that question about the.
Which that means the tax rate will lower once again every time those bonds are paid off, right?
The 2014 issue will not, because it's part of that nickel. But yes, as any other bonds that are not alternate revenue bonds, as they are paid off, the rate will drop. Yes.
Because I think one of our goals was to, not raise taxes, to lower the amount of debt burden on the college, because I feel like that makes the college unstable when we have so much debt. So we are working towards that goal. And we've hit a little bump in the road here in that we're having this, 37 million thrown in our lap, which is not a bump to some, but it is a bump if you got to borrow money to get it. So I don't like to borrow money, but I really see no way around this. And I've looked at the cash reserve situation and listened to Mary. I don't like the idea of rating that. I don't think that looks good for the college. And I think the benefits outweigh the negatives here, although I don't like, issuing debt. But according to Dr. Traska and Mary, they're saying that industry standard is that our reserve be 50% of our operating budget. Our operating budget for 2022 was 31.8 million. Our reserve, was that reserve number, that 14, was that as of the end of 21?
Yeah, we figured it's likely at about 17 million if we include the interest from our reserves. I think it's
from the working
comes out
cash.
like right around 17.1 million, which is good. I mean, that's where I'd like to be, and it is a typical practice to have I mean, essentially that's half of our operating budget. So if something happened, we have that money to lean on. And from my position, I want that to be there. I mean, I just feel that helps us, especially knowing that we do carry debt. I know we're asking to add a little bit more, but we carry that debt. So having that money in the bank is, I think, a good thing to have.
Also this state money should be coming pretty soon. I mean, it's out for bid for the architects. I think we'll hear something before the end of the month.
Yeah, we are.
So kicking that can down the road again is not an option. We've got to act on this tonight.
Well, I am already in receipt of the trust agreement from CDB that they request. They're already requesting that for the bank to certify that we have this money in a trust account. They're ready to move, but we have to do our part. I feel like, I don't borrow money either. Personally, I don't borrow money either, but sometimes you have to borrow money for a house or borrow money for a car. Those are things. I call this an individual's house or car. We're not borrowing money here to take a vacation. I'm not a proponent of debt, but not all debt is bad. And sometimes you have to borrow money to gain just a little bit. So
if I could emphasize Mr. Crabtree's earlier comments, just to clarify this, that a community college's ability to borrow money is set forth in 3-33 of the Community College Act, which indicates that borrowing money is to cause or to be issued bonds for the purpose and in the manner provided by the Act. There's no provision for the community college to go and obtain a bank loan in the traditional sense that one might obtain a bank loan. They do so through 3-33.7 of the Act, which is establishing lines of credit, but that is based on your future anticipation of revenue coming into the college, and that has to be paid within 60 days of receipt of that revenue. We call those in some instances tax anticipation warrants. So I don't believe there's even the ability for the public body in a traditional sense to go and obtain a bank loan that an individual might.
I think the
time means to borrow money is by issuing bonds.
Thanks, Dennis, for that. I think the other concern is time constraint. Like Mary said, we have to have this money in the trust fund. And, let's say, we run out of money the end of May because we're paying all our bills, we're not getting a tax revenue, and where are we going to go out and get money? I mean, we may not run out of money, but I just think it put the college in a strenuous position so I don't know. That's the way
I had a discussion with CDB over Christmas break, and I wasn't sure at that point exactly when our closing date was. So I had inquired, and they're not going to take this to their board for approval on the CDB side until we have our money in the account. So the sooner we can do our part, the better position we are in for CDB to do what they need to do.
Well, so tonight, we need to do this tonight because we can't go to borrow money from a bank. Time is of the essence. And when you get done spending this, when you borrow this money, you'll know where it's going. You can go up to the third, fourth floor of the main building and see where those money went. We're not, like you say, going on vacation here. We're not spending this money foolishly, but we need to do this tonight.
Right. And I would add to that as well that based on previous board action, we have pursued, with that approval, we have pursued these steps, the issuance of these bonds, to explore this, to line it up. We have a calendared out for these activities that actually we placed an activity on hold today because because of the discussions that were taking place. So we are at this point preventing this from moving forward. If we don't, and we're set to go tomorrow with board approval to restart that process.
Okay, have we discussed this enough?
I have a question. Why does the resolution speak to purchase of real property?
It says, I think there's more where we can repair and equip building and facilities. I think that's standard language.
Standard language, yeah.
It's what?
Standard
language. Standard language.
Okay.
It's an or statement.
It's all encompassing.
I think until that is removed, I would not vote for this.
Well, Chuck, it says purchase real or personal property.
Right.
Yeah, real is the one that scares me.
And it also says, or both, in order to alter, repair, and equip building and facilities.
It's an either or, Chuck. It's standard language. It's just either or.
Yeah, it's standard, yeah.
If it's in there, it's possible. If it's
And
not.
that's the language from the Community College Act.
Yeah. And that's not what we're doing. We're doing the or. I mean, that's, yeah.
At this point, I think you're going to have, you need to place some trust in us to do what we say we are going to do with this money.
And that is standard language, so we can't change that language. It's from the Community College Act, so. Are you comfortable with that, Chuck? Yeah, sorry.
It's not a shall. It does not dictate that you do purchase real property. It just allows you if needed. And if it's not required for this project, then it won't be utilized.
Any purchase of real property would have to come to the board for separate approval.
Call for the vote.
What is the vote, David? What's the motion?
Resolution 22-9, providing for the issuance of not to exceed $8 million in general obligation debt certificates.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. You ready? Copeland,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yes.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
No.
Trent,
Yes.
Okay. Motion passed. Aye, resolution 22-10. And
Refinance.
that's item I. It's for the reissuance of $14,400,000. That's correct, isn't it, Mr. Crabtree? It says obligation refunding bond series 2022B for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding bonds. And then Mary, you emailed today 2 options. And
Correct. I'm sorry.
I like your second option.
Oh, okay,
The
we need a
second.
first and a second.
Yeah, I need a first and a second to approve resolution 22-10.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
okay, the motion been made and second. Any discussion?
Yes. Are we going to have to increase the levy to pay the interest? That's what it says.
These
No.
bonds are already on the levy.
Pardon?
These are on the levy, so we're looking to refinance them and actually lower the amount of interest to be paid. So it should essentially, will reduce what the taxpayers need to pay. Now, the options that we have that Tom's going to explain here in a minute, one of them holds the levy rate static and has us pay the bonds off sooner. The other option reduces the rate by the amount of the difference in the interest payments, but does not shorten the payoff time.
Right.
And with that, I stole Tom's thunder, but if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Mary. There are lots of options that we could go with, but given prior discussions, the prior refinancing that occurred, it sort of made sense to provide what I would call the base case, which is option 1. Simply the idea that we would not change the repayment structure that currently exists, except to lower each payment through the smaller amount of interest to be paid. So that would just be the most standard sort of vanilla option, option 1. That does result in significant savings, net present value savings of estimated $1.5 million of interest costs to the taxpayer or over time, over 1.7 million in actual payments avoided. But given the prior choice by the board on the previous refinancing, I thought it appropriate specifically to show option 2, which is similar to what was chosen last time. And that is the idea that because we have these savings, because we have some drops in the bond and interest levy that are occurring, you have the opportunity, like you did last time, to significantly shorten the repayment structure from about 9 years down to 5 years. So a significant shortening of the repayment that would still not increase the current bond and interest levy rate. It would simply keep that levy rate as it stands, 25 plus cents for 2 more years. And then a 2-cent drop would occur for the next 2 years after that. So again, it's the option to pay off this particular repayment more quickly, shorten it from a 9-year repayment to about a 5-6 year repayment, not change the current bond and interest levy rate, let it stay the projected would stay the same under the 2% growth estimate in EAV at 25 cents, and then allow for a drop after that each year. And that, of course, then comes with significantly more interest cost savings, present value savings of just over estimated at $2 million compared to the prior option at 1.5, or an avoidance of over time in real dollars, not the present value dollars, a savings of $2.9 million of interest costs compared to the prior option of 1.7. So it's simply a way to avoid more interest cost and also shorten the repayment, but keeping that levy rate the same under the 2% EAV growth assumption that we've worked with.
Okay, I still see that it calls for providing for the levy of a direct annual tax. Do we have to increase our levy next year?
No, so the prior bond that's being refinanced is already on the levy. So if nothing were to occur, there would still be payments that would be levied for the old bond. This bond simply takes the place of the prior one. And under each of the scenarios, we're estimating the tax rate to stay the same or go down. Depending on which option is chosen. Neither assumes an increase in the tax rate given the 2% EAV increase.
Okay, that's not part of the motion, not those option 1 and 2. Is that Mary's decision then?
You're exactly correct. This would just simply be direction for me in which way you'd like me to structure it when we go to sell over the next couple of days. So it's not a hard decision. It would just simply be a direction, from the board during this discussion, sort of a straw poll, if you will. The actual resolution just simply approves the sale in general, and then we'll follow the guidelines that are outlined, whether we choose option 1 or 2.
Well, I would be in favor of saving more than $1 million in interest. What's the pleasure of the rest of the board members?
Yeah, I think we should do option 2. And I'm surprised that the board doesn't have to vote on this because it affects the tax rates, but whatever, I trust what you say, but I think we should definitely go with option 2, where we leave the levy rate the same for a couple more years before we start lowering it.
Agree, Julie.
I agree with you.
Chuck and Kevin?
Kevin had a thumbs up for 2. So it looks like we've only heard option 2 all the way across, no choices for option 1.
And I would add that the action item is sufficiently on the agenda and the public has been made aware of it. If you want to amend the agenda to include a specific option.
Dennis, might I ask you, are we going to have to increase our levy next time we?
That's been answered, and I agree with the commenters that the answer is no.
It's no, Chuck. Yeah.
If we put that in the resolution, does that tie your hands? Does that limit what you can do, or does that still leave you flexibility when you're marketing this thing?
No, I mean, it doesn't change my viewpoint. I mean, legally, you're authorizing the resolution, which gives me the ability to sell the bonds. I now know the structure, given the assumed growth rate, given the projected tax rate of essentially keeping it level for 2 more years and then dropping as shown. You know, to me, that gives enough direction that we can achieve that.
And if you're comfortable with Mr. Crabtree's explanation, you can vote on the motion as is.
Okay. All right. It seems like everybody's comfortable. Sam, are you comfortable?
I am.
Okay. All righty. Sounds like everyone, I think, is comfortable. Call for the vote.
I'm not comfortable about the levy.
Well, the levy's supposed to be the same, Chuck.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
That's what I was asking, and we kept dancing around that. So, okay, if that's the same, I'm okay.
That's correct, isn't it, Tom? And Mary?
Yes, the expected, because again, we can't see the future, but the expected tax rate that we're targeting is the same as it is this year at the 25 cents.
Okay. Okay. Call for the vote.
Copeland,
Yes.
Wertz,
Yep.
McCain,
Yes.
Hyen,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Rust,
Yes.
Hanfelder,
Yes.
Trent.
Yes.
Okay. Informational items. Do we need to discuss those, or I've read about them, but
Yeah, unless there's questions, sir. Yeah, be happy to guide anyone through those.
okay. Any questions from the board with regard to informational items?
I might add, if I could, on the student board dinner. That's one that it's obvious we did this in November, so some time has passed, but that's something the leadership team will review formally at our retreat later this month. And then, as you know, we'll plan hopefully to be able to do a follow-up dinner this spring. And we'd like to create, kind of a methodology to be able to address some of the low-hanging fruit that students have brought up, sort of the easier things we can address, and then kind of look at where the themes are. And really the idea here, as we've presented up front, is really to hear from the students, to take their feedback, and then create or develop opportunities for changes to improve their experience. So if the board has any other questions on that, I'm happy to answer those, but we'll look forward to providing kind of updates on the things we've changed in response to the students' feedback.
If there are no questions or comments, we'll move to leadership team reports.
Dr. Lane is up first.
Everyone, in terms of looking at the time, I'm going to be very short and sweet. So a couple of highlights of what's going on in academic affairs. This week, faculty returned to campus. Yay, we were happy to see them. And in-service week started. This morning, we had over 200 people on Zoom, including faculty and staff, and had a couple of excellent presentations, one from folks from Centerstone on Mental Health 101, which was like a prequel to the Mental Health First Aid I mentioned in the chat. And then Maya Lawrence, our Director of Diversity, Equity and Inclusion, discussed the role of critical race theory in higher education. I also just wanted to make sure you all knew, I'm sure you've been updated by Dr. T, but the COVID response team decided that the first 2 weeks of classes, that most of the lecture classes will be virtual. We'll reevaluate. We have purchased additional owls when we return for faculty to check out so that they can have that flexibility. And we continue doing blend flex training. Our Farm Tech and CBE welding are up and running and students will start next week. As I mentioned last time, we've begun the HLT writing work, which will continue through spring of 2023 when we have our site visit. I wanted to highlight that Dr. Sue Serwinski is working with Ed Burnley, our fire science coordinator, on a fire science academy. They're working with local schools to develop this academy for high school seniors that will help them complete the initial steps in terms of becoming a volunteer firefighter or a paid on-call or full-time firefighter. So that's an exciting project. And also Dr. Michael Sundblad is having preliminary conversations of a very interesting idea that can bring us likely additional students. We can train incumbent workers. We're looking at credentialing across departments, short-term, one semester credentials that might combine, say, criminal justice with cybersecurity, so that a police officer could come and get this certificate where now then they can become an expert on their team in cybersecurity. We're looking at another possible relationship with criminal justice and psychology. So kind of mental health training, de-escalation techniques for police officers as well as they're out working in the field. So those are very exciting projects. In adult ed, Val Harris was happy to announce that one of her employees, William Ellington, he's an adult ed instructional coordinator. He made the Illinois Education Professional Development Network's Friday feature that's shared with adult educators across the country. He put together a series of videos to help train instructors and coordinators on using the OWL technology. So again, Lewis and Clark is really kind of at cutting edge in terms of just quickly learning how to do blend flex and high flex and owls. So I'm really proud of the folks working on that. And then I just have one quick announcement that we were lucky enough to hire a new dental instructor, and her name is Alicia Bolin, and we welcomed her to campus this week. So that's all I've got in academic affairs, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jill. Great stuff. Exciting.
I'll piggyback off that and try to be just as quick as Jill was. I just wanted to focus our operations report tonight on obviously the elephant in the room, which is COVID and our return to campus. So I know everyone's aware of the increasing positivity rates throughout our region. I think we're somewhere around 25% today, which is the largest I think we've seen throughout this pandemic. So we're continuing to keep an eye on that as our COVID response team is meeting daily, as we're working through issues and preparing to welcome our students back for the spring semester on Monday. Just to kind of give you an idea of where our metrics are right now, the last week, which was our first week back on campus, we had 18 positive staff member cases. We also had a few student cases, mainly in our athletics programs who were testing. Obviously, our students aren't back on campus yet, and our faculty weren't here last week. So far, at the end of the day, well, I shouldn't say that. As of 5 p.m. today, we have 8 new cases this week among our team members. So we're trying to be very cognizant of that. And we've asked our supervisors and our leadership to try to provide some remote work when and where possible to limit the number of people on campus. As Jill could also speak to, we spoke at at our exec level and our leadership level, and are planning to, at least for the first 2 weeks, offer our lecture courses in a virtual format for the most part, and really limit the number of students on campus for face-to-face classes to those labs and our CTE programs that require that hands-on component. So we are monitoring that daily in our COVID response team meetings, along with leadership discussions, and we'll continue to assess that over these first 2 weeks and remain hopeful that we can get all of our folks back on campus. But our goal is to make it a safe environment before we do that. So today we did share with our team members, and I think Dr. Katie is sharing with students if she hasn't already. And we've posted on our coronavirus website our new COVID guidelines. We have adopted the CDC and the Illinois Department of Public Health's 5-day quarantine and are following that closely. We're reminding our students and our team members as they return to campus of our testing options still on campus, and are trying to get the message out to everyone just in how our new quarantine standards will change. So all of that is updated on our coronavirus webpage, and I will leave it at that and open it up to any questions.
Hi, Lori. The quick question on behalf of the students. A lot of people are confused. A lot of the times our lab classes come directly after our lecture classes. So I'm going on Zoom at 2 o'clock and then lab at 2:15. Are those going to be more combined? Are we allowed to go to lecture for some of those classes?
We have 2 options available, and the best thing you can do, faculty have been asked, and I'm sure are doing this, posting either via emails or through Blackboard to students. There are going to be a few exceptions, especially in health sciences, but in some of the other sciences where you can be in class for the lecture and then go to the lab. We also, however, have several Zoom rooms set up across campus where if a student has something back to back and doesn't have time to get home, they can attend class via the Zoom room. So I would just check in with your instructors, and they should be reaching out to you to find out how that's going to work.
A lot of emails have been sent out, but thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Thanks, Sam.
And Sam, if you have other questions, just don't hesitate to reach out on behalf of the students. We'd appreciate the feedback, and whatever we can do, we'll respond. So.
And Sam, you're welcome to join us at our 8:15 COVID response team meetings. Honestly, we're constantly.
I just might.
Yeah, no, actually, that's a great point.
Your student perspective would really help guide some of our communications going forward.
Awesome idea.
Yes, the 12 short hours we will be on.
We'll see you tomorrow morning, 8:15. So that's our next meeting. So.
And if you miss tomorrow's, we'll have one the next day. So
yeah. Every day, 8:15. So pick a day. So thank you.
Perfect.
Mary, you're up again if you have anything else to say, at this point. But
I don't. Kevin Rust is holding up his hand, but he was muted, so he couldn't be heard.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, Sam, I sympathize with you. That sounds like a real big problem, but that would be something that would happen for the next, hopefully for just the next 2 weeks, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to read something I got that came from the Illinois Community College Trustees Association. It just came today, and it's very brief. It says, with the more transmissible Omicron variant driving record COVID-19 case counts across the country, many colleges have opted to start the spring semester online or delay the date at which students, staff, and faculty members should come back together. Those campuses have grabbed headlines this month, but most colleges are still planning to forge ahead with their spring 2022 plans and are at various stages of opening up for an in-person semester or quarter. Yeah. So let's hope that at the end of this 2-week period, we can get back with the majority of the higher institutions of learning.
Many of those are campuses with dormitories as well. So I think.
Oh, yes, and which makes it even worse.
Well, I mean, it has a different
Yeah, and that's the goal, Kevin. We talked a lot about it at the leadership level. And of course, we all remember that 2-week break that we were going to take back in March of 2020 that spiraled out of control. But, all the metrics are pointing to, we're at the peak, but we just have to continue to monitor it and thank God to our faculty and our team members and our students for their continued flexibility. They're unfortunately very experienced at being able to pivot at a moment's notice.
I appreciate what you're doing. I'll speak for some people. Trying to deal with this on a daily basis has got to be like trying to nail Jello to a tree, except you have to do it every morning. And so hopefully in a couple of weeks it'll get better. But thanks for all you do.
Yeah, Larry's exactly right. I mean, it's a tough job you guys have, and we thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Kevin. So Mary, can we have a riveting 20-minute presentation on finances, please?
Well, I'm pretty sure that none of you can guess where I've been spending my time. But in addition to bond issues and tax levies and the refinancings and the main complex and all of the things that will help move us forward, we have those behind the scenes that are working diligently every day to keep the day-to-day things moving. As with Katie's team and everyone actually on this campus, we've been focused on the students as they've returned. We've got the Bursars team and our accounting specialists working to get our students in a great place, financially for the spring semester. And beyond that, we have, as I allude to, and we'll probably continue to allude to for the next month or so, we have all of the tax implications that come with the ending of a year. We've got the Cindy and her team working on the payroll side of things. We have 1098Ts to students. We have 1099s for vendors. We have W-2s that need to go out to our employees. And then I believe there's a few that HR has 1096Cs or all of the different things. So we're just focused on keeping those things moving forward right now.
Thank you, Mary.
I'll maybe provide a little bit on the numbers, but we'll stop right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure, thank you. Katie, any additional insights on your end?
Sure, just a couple additional updates. So for athletics, I just would like to recognize Doug and his leadership with athletics. Lewis and Clark has decided to temporarily pause fans in the stands just until we kind of get to the other side of this surge. And we were the first community college to kind of step out there and do that. And so a lot of times it takes one person to step forward. And so I appreciate Doug's leadership in that. And just so you're aware, for a couple weeks, we're gonna say no fans in the stands. Also, from our division, the work that we'll be doing in spring semester is really going to be about reviewing all of our processes, looking at our policies, and starting to look at are we working in the most efficient way that we can, in the most streamlined way? Are we in alignment with national best practices? And then hopefully kind of re-engineering some things for better processes that are aligned with policies, that align to our strategic plan, and are supported by targeted marketing campaigns that would support ultimately a world-class experience for our students here at LMC. So that's big work. And so you'll hear more about that as we proceed, but this division will be very, very busy for this semester.
Thank you, Katie. Next, Debbie Edelman on development. A quick update there, Debbie. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening. The Foundation's Board of Directors met on December 15th. It meets 3 times a year, so our board meetings are pretty chock full of information and special events unto themselves. 3 of our directors are in the Zoom room tonight. Chairman Hyen and Trustee Dwight Wirtz and President Traska. So I thought I'd ask if any of you would like to comment on the meeting.
Great meeting.
Debbie, I'd like to comment. We had a student made a presentation there, and I tell you what, I've sat through quite a few of the presentations for the students who are scholarship recipients, and some of them are pretty emotional. And we change people's lives, and we've helped them when they needed the help the worst. And if you've sat in a few of those meetings, you know why we're there. It's very rewarding to sit there and listen to these people tell a story. You know, and well, I'm gonna say, if you're not a member of the 1838 or President's Council, or you're not involved in the foundation, it's a very rewarding group, and you get to see your results. So I love having those presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Thanks, Debbie.
Another high point of the board meeting was hearing from some of our new leadership team members, Dr. Katie Adams and Dr. Michael Sundblad. Our directors really do feel like they're part of Lewis and Clark's team, and they are always grateful when they get to know our leadership, especially our newer leadership members, and get to know them well. So to Michael and Katie, thank you for spending that time with us. Action items at the meeting included approving the foundation's FY21 audit, and it was approved. Our auditor is CJ Schlosser and Company, and Dave Bartosiak, their principal, presented the audit and said that it was a clean audit. There are no findings, no concerns, no anything. Even congratulated us on increasing our contributions over the previous fiscal year during 2020, 2021, which was a pretty difficult time to fundraise due to COVID, as most of us know. He also commended the board, or he also gave credit to Mary Schulte and Cindy McCoy for their meticulous work on our financials for the foundation all year long. So I wanted to make sure that this board was aware of that compliment. Another action item was the approval of a contract with Cornerstone Government Affairs, which is intended to advance both INGREC's mission and the main complex renovation activity. Other than that, scholarships are being accepted, applications are being accepted for the 22-23 academic year until March 1st. So please encourage folks to complete an application if they intend to enroll for the fall and spring next year. And our next foundation board meeting will be April 20th. Are there any questions for me tonight? Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. Thank you. And Gary is going to give us a quick update on NGREC, and then I'll conclude with my update.
Good evening, folks. Glad to be able to catch up with everybody after the first of the year. Just a couple of items. 2 weeks or so ago, we did announce the internship program, which has now migrated to a school year program. As you know, our traditional program has been over the summer, has involved a lot of Lewis and Clark students in internships with various staff members. We've migrated that to a fall and spring semester approach, given that we now have the National Science Foundation funded REU research experience for undergraduates, which occurs during the summer. And we just announced for Lewis and Clark students and for faculty to serve as mentors, the opportunity for students to do an internship during the spring and fall semesters, which we will start this semester. So please take this opportunity to let your students know that is an opportunity, and we're looking forward to hopefully having quite a few applications for those internship positions. Along that line, we also last fall announced the Faculty Fellows Program for Lewis and Clark faculty, which is a paid fellowship program to work in research, education, outreach, and related areas with National Great Rivers. And we've had some significant interest to date for that, but I wanted to mention that to put that back on your on your plate to think about opportunities for being involved with those kind of activities with National Great Rivers. And then finally, this last year, as you know, we moved to a full funding level in state government, and we're excited about that. And part of the argument for being able to move to full funding was some new initiatives, one of which is looking at microplastics in the environment. And we've now planned a comprehensive study of the Piasell watershed to look at microplastics in every level of the system. And that too offers an opportunity for Lewis and Clark faculty and Lewis and Clark students. So I'm excited about all three of those areas and look forward to how they develop over the course of the spring. So with that, that's pretty much all I have. If you've got any questions about any one of those three, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Thank you all. So I'll start off by just a sort of grand thank you around the virtual room. We have, I think, 67 people still hanging out, but just want to thank everyone, board members, community members, team members, for your advocacy and support. I know oftentimes it's difficult to get to a decision that is difficult. So I applaud all of you, you know, no matter what your position is, for the thoughtful discussion, for the opportunity to bring forward proposals and opportunities that we hope and we believe will continue to move the institution forward. So just grateful for the team we have, and truly do look forward to some wonderful days ahead. With that being said, I'll just give a couple of highlight top level things here. Obviously, you've heard on the COVID response, our CRT meeting happens every morning at 8:15, and this is an opportunity for a team of membership across campus to touch base and to sort of identify issues and concerns that are happening. And then we respond to those things as quickly as we can to maintain a level of safety and health on campus. We hope, to your point, Kevin, that and that was the plan, that by February 1, we're able to move back to a face-to-face environment. We believe by next week, taking a close look at metrics, thinking about what's happening and seeing what's happening on campus, we'll probably try to make that call no later than the end of next week, so we have kind of a little bit of a buffer. Of course, if we make a decision one way and we have to change, we'll have to change. So we're doing our best to keep our finger on the pulse of this. We're going to kind of reignite the strategic planning work. You know, obviously, since you know, the cyber event, and obviously we had our Christmas holiday, you know, we have to get that momentum back. So there'll be a reintroduction of that plan, a refocus of our 4 areas of direction. And so we're excited about that. And I hope by spring, sometime this middle of this semester, we'll have our initial update from our key direction leadership as well. Obviously, the main complex is moving forward. There should be some good announcements coming from the state in the coming days. But we're really excited about that. And again, back to my thank you in the beginning, just thank you for the confidence in the work that's going to be happening there. We really are setting this up to be a project that's going to lead us into the future and, of course, help generations to come in terms of education and access to Lewis and Clark. Late last week, I was actually asked to join a early childcare advisory consortium for the state. So I'll be serving on that committee with the president of Harper College, and that's through the ICCB, and they will be voting on that at their board meeting. I was asked by the director of ICCB if I'd be willing to do that. And I know at Lewis and Clark, we have a wonderful early childcare program, and we are advocates for the work being done in that field. So I'm really proud to be serving and serving not only Lewis and Clark, but supporting the state's efforts in moving the work around early childcare forward. Next Thursday, Friday, it still seems to be happening. We have a president's retreat in Champaign, Illinois at Parkland College. And one of the highlights of that, coincidentally, is going to be cybersecurity. So myself and 2 other presidents in the state who've experienced similar issues in the last, say, year or so are going to be leading that panel. And we're just talking generally about the experience and what our recommendations would be to those institutions who are looking at what sort of infrastructure, what sorts of precautions do we need to be taking so we can try to limit any sort of breach that happens to those institutions. So I'll be heading to Champaign on Thursday of next week and returning on Friday. One of the things we haven't talked about very much yet, but it's a concept that's been explored for a couple of months. Several of us were in Chicago. We have the director coming to our campus in a couple of weeks. It's the Revolution Workshop concept. And this is a concept that when I was appointed to the Governor's Commission, actually was at Revolution Workshop in Chicago. And it's a pre-apprenticeship to apprenticeship program. And immediately I felt this model could work in our East St. Louis location and our Scott Bibb location in terms of broadening access and I think influencing enrollment and partnership directly. So we're hoping to be able to bring a more formal proposal and outline to the board, I would say in about the March timeframe, in looking at kind of rethinking how and what we're doing in East St. Louis and adding a layer of access to our Scott Bibb location as well. The other thing too is I've talked to Brett. Brett and Ron are going to be working together with myself and the leadership team to be thinking about a more comprehensive IT plan and the investment that will be required over a number of fiscal years. Obviously, this relates to cybersecurity, but it also relates to the investment that will be required to continue to grow and advance our BlendFlex model, as well as the work going on around our competency-based education model, as well as some of the micro-credentialing work, kind of cross-functional credentialing that Dr. Lane alluded to in her update. So again, thank you all for your support and advocacy. It is certainly very much appreciated, I know, by everyone, and just wish everyone a wonderful evening and a wonderful rest of the week. And it's 2022, so let's make it a wonderful year. Keep working hard together and keep trying to find ways to make this institution better and better. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Chairman Hyman. That concludes my comments.
Thank you very much. Any board members have any more business or comments to make? If not, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night,
everyone.